This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to the South today. I'm Daryl Baser. It's a week since the COVID-19 pandemic alert was raised to the highest level of level 4, prompting a nationwide lockdown. Director of Public Health, Dr. Caroline McInlay, revealed at 1 p.m. this afternoon there are now 47 confirmed new cases of COVID-19, 14 linking to a recent wedding at Bluff. There are a total people infected with COVID-19 in New Zealand is 708. Things are changing in New Zealand as the global pandemic continues to spread, and the South today isn't immune to the issues facing the nation as we band together to stop the spread of COVID-19. We at Allied Press thank you for your viewership and understanding at this time as New Zealand joins the rest of the world in doing everything possible to reduce the impacts of the deadly virus. New Zealand is a week into the nationwide lockdown, with people essential to keeping the country working and informed still working, and businesses closed throughout the land. It's with 3 weeks and possibly more of isolation to prevent the spread of COVID-19, Dunedin's Mayor Aaron Hawkins offers some words of encouragement for the city. The nation is entering the second week of being locked down. People are only allowed out on essential missions like to buy groceries and must queue 2 metres apart to wait to get in as New Zealand joins the global fight to stop the COVID-19 pandemic. Dunedin Mayor Aaron Hawkins is thankful to city residents who are following the rules.
I want to take a moment today to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who are taking this lockdown seriously by staying at home and staying in your bubbles.
Talking from his Port Chalmers home, the Mayor admits being cut off from friends and extended whānau is not easy and can be a source of stress for many.
This is hard going, but we're all in this together and we will get through it together. The harder we work now, the sooner we'll be on the other side.
Many people have arranged to buy and safely deliver groceries to older or immunocompromised people. But he says there's a helpline for those who may not have the best family support networks.
If you need help or support, please get in touch. Whether it's getting groceries or medicine or just a friendly ear, call 0800 322 4000.
Mayor Hawkins says essential council staff are working throughout the pandemic to make sure rubbish collection continues and that drinking and wastewater services continue to function. However, he says playgrounds and dog parks are closed and has one plea for all Dunedin residents.
And please, please, please stop flushing wet wipes down the toilet.
Mayor Hawkins says people should be kind and stay home. As experts say, keeping isolated will stop the spread of the coronavirus. In Dunedin, the South today. With the country in lockdown, many minds are turning to the elderly and vulnerable who may be without assistance at this time. Civil Defence and Emergency Management Otago are overseeing the response in the region, and Group Controller Richard Saunders gave the South today a briefing 1 week into the lockdown. So we're a week into this thing. Firstly, what's changed over this week?
Look, I think obviously the announcement that the country was going into lockdown was made with 48 hours notice, so that was a pretty hectic time for everybody, workplaces and homes, just getting people as prepared as they could be for the lockdown period. So look, in the last week, I think things have settled down a little bit. People have got used to the fact that they are going to be at home and living in their bubbles for 4 weeks, and have developed some routines around supermarkets and exercise and other things. So look, after what was a fairly hectic start to last week, 7 days in now, I think that the general feel is from the agencies we talk to and from our other councils who are performing civil defence functions is that that things are starting to settle into a bit more of a rhythm. But of course, we've just got to be prepared for things to change and also be prepared for some of the challenges that come along with being locked down for such a long period.
You said about some of the challenges. What do you think are some of the main challenges facing you all in lockdown?
Look, the biggest focus for civil defence emergency management at the moment is very much around welfare, particularly for the vulnerable at-risk communities, the elderly communities, immunocompromised, people that might not have access to essentials such as groceries and medicines. As we move further into that lockdown period, and we need to make sure that those people realise that there is help available. And we need to be reaching out to them. And it's great to see so many people in the community reaching out to friends and family and neighbours. But our real focus at Civil Defence is making sure that no one's missed through this period, and everybody has the ability to access help if they need it, so that they can continue to get groceries and get supplies.
Indeed, you said about getting groceries. A lot of people have elderly parents. And a couple of friends, they're having trouble convincing the mother who is forgetful to not go to the shops by herself. How can we ensure that our elderly folk are keeping home, keeping safe?
So I didn't catch that clearly. So was the question just for elderly people that might not be able to make it to the shops themselves? How do we look after them?
Well, the ones that 70 plus who basically are verboten, they aren't allowed to go shopping.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that when we talk about the at-risk group, obviously 70 plus have been identified as one of those groups, and where possible, if they can avoid putting themselves in situations where they're around other people and they really can, follow that message of stay home and stay safe, that means they have to be supported in other ways, whether it's if they have family or if it's you've got an opportunity to help out your neighbours. And then for those that don't have those opportunities, that's where the other welfare groups that are very well established and really do a good job supporting our community, that's when they can assist as well. So obviously grocery deliveries is I guess one that's talked about a lot, and the opportunity for people to go out and buy groceries on behalf of those at-risk groups and then leave them on their doorstep so that they don't have to put themselves in situations where they might become more at risk of being exposed to COVID-19. So certainly that's one way of being able to help out, but it's also just about touching base with your elderly neighbours or people in your family or friends and just making sure they're doing okay. When you're locked down in your house, you might not be having as much communication as you normally would. It can be really good just to hear from people and have those conversations and make sure you're staying in touch with people in the community. So, reaching out, making contact over the phone or over internet or over the fence, obviously trying to avoid that physical contact wherever possible.
I have a tendency, being a Dunedin-based reporter, to be kind of Dunedin-centric, but with the ORC, you are literally covering the whole of Otago. What are some of the issues that are facing the more rural provinces?
So Civil Defence Management in Otago, as you say, covers the Otago region, and each of our district councils in the region has a civil defence function. So, they've all done a fantastic job gearing up their civil defence function alongside continued delivery of their business as usual services. And we have a number of civil defence teams now working with their communities. I guess isolation can be a challenge in terms of our rural communities, and not having as easy access to things like supermarkets or large supermarkets as we might have in the larger cities, and that puts pressure on people to need to travel further. And I know that people are conscious that might be against the advice where they're being asked to stay within their communities. So, something that needs to be considered is how do we ensure that those people in rural communities still have access to all of the goods they need when potentially their local shops aren't geared up to deal with the volume of supplies and shoppers that they would be normally. So, there are some challenges in those rural communities, and again, it's about good communication, understanding where the needs are, working hard with these shops to identify what's challenging for them. Is it their supply chain struggling to keep up? Is it just purely the volume of people that are shopping now that they're not used to, and are there ways around that? So slightly different challenges, but I guess having a presence, whether it be through civil defence or through another agency, and just making sure we're aware of what challenges they're facing, and then there are always ways to overcome those challenges once we know what they are.
When you said about other agencies, so civil defence emergency management, you're umbrellaing how many agencies are you guys umbrellaing? I'm looking at basically.
Oh, look, I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, this response is, so just to give you an idea, the response to COVID-19 is health-led. So it's obviously it's a health issue. It's being led by health, and we've been tasked as civil defence agencies to provide any support necessary for health to be able to respond. So we are working very closely with the police, with Fire and Emergency New Zealand, with the Defence Force, with volunteering organisations, and a lot of the agencies we would normally work with in the course of an event such as a flood that we're more used to responding to, and just making sure that we're coordinating our efforts in the way that best supports health to respond to the pandemic.
So we are 1 week in, 3 to go, a minimum of 3 to go, but it seemed like a minimum of 3 there. What do you think the greatest challenges will be going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that there may be a risk as time goes on of people getting complacent, and we'll be really trying to support the messaging from central government and from Ministry of Health and others, just to remember that to give ourselves the best chance of achieving the goals that are being set to flatten the curve and avoid the spread of COVID-19 and take a bit of pressure off our health system, we really need to keep this up for the whole 4 weeks. And I'm sure that will get challenging as time goes on, and maybe there'll be a few people that feel that they could relax just a little bit as we get towards the end of the 4 weeks. But we would really just be encouraging people as much as possible to continue to behave the way that they've started in this first week for the rest of the 4 weeks, and then we'll have the best chance as a community of getting a good outcome. The other challenge that I think is this ensuring that our whole community has access to the essentials they need to be able to be comfortable in lockdown and have access to groceries, access to medicine, having some social connection, so they feel like they're still getting some connection to the community, which will be really important for their welfare. And that's why you will see just a sustained focus on welfare from the civil defence groups for the next 3 weeks, and just really pushing those messages out to the community and encouraging everybody to look out for everybody else.
It might be out of your realm of expertise, but I'm wondering if you'd heard much from social agencies about how the poorest of the poor are going. Dunedin's homeless. We don't have a great deal, but there are a few out there.
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's again, as a vulnerable group in society, we've got to make sure that we are considering their needs at this time as well. And I know that our welfare groups within our civil defence teams in the councils have been considering their response for homeless and those vulnerable groups within society. So that's something that we need to be conscious of, both in terms of providing for them when they might not have access to the normal services that they have, but also protecting them from potential spread of COVID-19 and not asking and making sure that we're helping them avoid those situations where they might expose themselves or be at greater risk. So that's something in terms of our response to vulnerable and at-risk groups, we need to make sure we are considering and talking with those agencies and other groups that provide support for those groups on a regular basis, just to understand how they might be able to be supported to continue to provide that, or provide it in a slightly different way that helps to address some of the medical risks associated with this event. I guess the only other thing I'd really take the chance to say is just to encourage everyone to Continue to stay home, stay safe, stay in your bubble. Now, those messages are there for a reason, and they are super important. We do appreciate people still need to go out to access groceries to get some exercise, but again, stay local when you're doing that. Still respect the social distancing rule and keep your 2 metres and keep any physical interactions to a minimum. And keep practicing good hygiene, hand washing, washing surfaces, and that will, those sort of things, just encourage everyone to keep going with those.
Time now for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Beginning with the situation, an anticyclone brings fine weather and for a few more days, but cloud may be persistent on the Otago coast. In the southern towns, Balclutha, the Catlins, Lumsden and Gore can all expect moderate northeasterlies and some high cloud. The Catlins aims for 16, while Balclutha, Lumsden and Gore all head for 17 degrees. Heading westwards to the Central Lakes, Queenstown, Wanaka and Alexandra are all in for light winds and clear skies with 19 degrees. Te Anau is set to be slightly chillier with light winds, fine weather and 16 degrees. Heading to the northern towns, on the coast Timaru and Oamaru are due for moderate northeasterlies, clear skies and 16 degrees, while inland Twizel and Omarama are in for light winds and fine weather with 20 degrees each. In Dunedin, low cloud and fog should be present tonight with an overnight low of 12 degrees. Low cloud and mist at first tomorrow morning, which breaks mid-morning for sunny periods till evening. A high of 15 and a low of 11. It should be cloudy on Friday with northeasterly winds becoming breezy in the afternoon. A high of 14 and a low of 11 degrees. It should be fine tonight in Invercargill with a low of 4 degrees. Mostly fine tomorrow with a high of 16 and a low of 5 degrees. It's looking at being fine again on Friday with a high of 17 and a low of 9. And that's all from the South Today team for this Wednesday. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook. Stay tuned for the latest update from the government after this. Have a great evening, stay calm during the pandemic, don't travel unless it's absolutely necessary, and look out for your friends and whānau. Ka kite anō.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.